Hello everybody, today we're going to be starting day 2 of Unit 4. Again, you probably have already seen this. We're just going to go over it again to make sure you guys fully understand it. And yeah, so day 2, Unit 4 notes, proportions. So we're going to do a little bit more on proportions and specifically similar figures. Okay, so let's start with example 1. We have to solve for the variable. Now remember yesterday, last class, whatever day it is, we went ahead and figured out to define a variable from a proportion, we have to cross multiply. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my little circles so I know what to multiply. And I'm going to go ahead and write it out. So I'm doing 6.8 times 50 and t times 34. And remember, those two circles are equal to each other. So I set them equal and create an equation. Now I'm going to go ahead and multiply. 6.8 times 50 is 340. And 34 times t is just 34t. Now I go ahead and solve the equation. So basically I'm trying to get t by itself. So I need to undo this multiplication by dividing both sides by 34. And that gives me t equals 10. Okay? So now you're going to try this on your own. You can do it now or wait until the end. It's up to you. If you do it now, just pause the video. Okay? So go ahead and try that on your own. Example 2 is the exact same thing except it's a word problem. So it doesn't already create the proportion for you. You have to be able to do that. Okay? So example 2 says the wait time for to ride a roller coaster is 20 minutes when there's 160 people in line. At this rate, how long will it take, or how long is the wait time when 220 people are in line? Okay? First question you need to ask yourself is what is being compared? Okay? What are the two things we're comparing here? Well, in this problem, we're comparing the minutes and the wait time to the number of people in line. So minutes to people, that's our ratio. Okay? So I just write it as a fraction because proportions are made up of fractions. Minutes over people. So I go ahead and do that comparison. So the ratio, I got to compare minutes to people. Well, they told me it was 20 minutes when there's 160 people in line. So that's my first ratio. The other one, I don't know the minutes, but I do know the people is 220. So I can create it with a variable in there and just get it that way. Let's see if it'll pop up for me. Yeah. So I'm comparing the 20 minutes to 160 people, and that's supposed to be equal to the unknown amount of minutes that we don't know that we're actually trying to find. I just put an X there, compared to the 220 people in line. Okay, do you see that the 160 and the 220 are both the number of people? That's why they're on the bottom, and the 20 is minutes, and what we're trying to find is also minutes. So that's why those are on the top. Okay, you got to be careful about where you put them and make sure that they're the same across proportion. Okay, the same representative. Minutes to people for both of those ratios. So now I'm just going to go ahead and solve for the x, same way I did for the first example. I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm multiplying 20 by 220 and the x by 160. So I'm going to write that out as an equation. So it's 160 times x is, remember, all these two circles are equal to each other, equal to the 20 times 220. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and multiply 160 times x is 160x, and 20 times 220 is 4,400. Let's go ahead and scoot up a little bit so you can see it. So now I'm going to go ahead and undo this multiplication by dividing by 160. And what that actually gives me is 27.5. And because it's in the top, that's representing minutes. So it would be 27.5 minutes when there's 220 people in line. Okay? So with word problems, you got to make sure you label your answer. What is it representing? Alright, so now you're going to try a word problem on your own. I gave you the fun one though. Well, I guess they're both fun. Gave you the one about food, which I think is better. It's more interesting to do when you're trying to find out about food. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and try this one on your own. Do the exact same thing. Start with figuring out what you're comparing. Create a ratio. Then create your proportion using that ratio. Okay, and then you just have to solve it. Now remember, if you have any questions on these try on your own, Write them down. We will be going over the answers in class together, so no worries. Alright? Okay. Moving on to similar figures. Sorry if this is very tiny. So similar figures are figures that are the same shape and have the same ratio of their lengths to the corresponding sides. It's very wordy. It just means that the two, when you compare their lengths, they're proportional to each other. Okay? The ratios are equal to each other. So that's similar figures. Symbols that you're probably going to encounter is this guy, which is a symbol used to describe figures that are similar to each other. Okay? We've got this little triangle symbol, which actually does mean a triangle. So this triangle XYZ is a symbol describing a triangle with the vertices. Vertexes. No, it's supposed to be vertices. I spelled that wrong. Totally wrong word. Vertices of X, Y, and Z. So those are those three corners. That's what they're labeled. And this guy with the line over it, that's a symbol describing a line segment with the endpoints of X and Y. You're going to see that for like sides of a shape. Okay? So I just want to give you a quick overview of that. Example 3, so here are two triangles, and what it's saying that a triangle RST, which is this first one because it's got an R, S, and T on it, is similar to triangle XYZ, which is this guy right here. So they're already telling you they are similar, okay, meaning they should be proportional to each other. So now, knowing that they're proportional to each other, they want us to find the length of XY, the line segment XY, so this side, okay? So what we're going to do is actually, I'm going to highlight them so I get the same sides. So I'm going to make this one yellow, so this side's yellow. Now the same side on the bigger triangle would be this one with the 15. And then I'm going to use pink, I think. So then this side right here is supposed to be the same side as XY. So that's what I'm comparing, the yellow to the pink. Okay, those are the things I'm comparing. So that's creating my ratio, yellow to pink. So I'm going to compare. I'm going to write my ratio as 5/4 and 15 over, we'll just use the variable x. Okay, so that's going to give me my proportion. Okay, now that I have that, I can use that to find my missing variable. So I go ahead and do my cross multiplying. So I'm going to do 5 times x and 4 times 15. And remember, the circles are equal to each other, so I write it out. 4 times 15 is equal to 5 times x. I go ahead and multiply. 4 times 15 is 60. 5 times x is just 5x. And then I divide everything by 5 because I want to get x by itself. So I get x is equal to 12, and since all of these are labeled with an m, meaning meters, I'm going to label my 12 with meters as well. Okay? So you guys are going to do the same thing here. Why does it jump? Do the same thing here. Okay? You can use colors if you want. You can just go ahead and like shade over the lines that you're comparing. Okay? So figure out a way that you're going to compare it and then write it out that way. Alright? Alright, and we'll go over this next class. Alright, and then the last example is our word problem for it, which is very similar to the similar figures we just did. Sometimes you'll get a picture that goes with it, which is really nice. Sometimes you might need to draw your own picture, which is totally fine. Okay? So here, Ruth is at a park standing next to a slide. Ruth is 5 feet tall and her shadow is 4 feet long. If the shadow of the slide is 4.8 feet long, what is the height of the slide? Assume the triangles are similar. So if I did this, it's like the height of Ruth and the edge of her shadow, I can create a triangle right here. Okay, same thing with the slide. Let's go ahead. I just drew a little line to make it look like a triangle for me. And so, I'm assuming they're similar, so I'm going to assume that we're going to go ahead and use the same thing, a proportion. So now I'm going to compare it. So I'm going to compare the height, which I'm going to do in yellow, the height of each of them, to the shadow, which I'm going to do in green, because it's on the grass. Okay? So if I do that, so that's what I'm going to compare. The height, which I did in yellow. I should probably just write that over here somewhere. Height to shadow. I'll make it smaller in a second. That's what I'm going to compare. Height to shadow. And you could just write out the actual things that you're comparing instead of highlighting if you want. It's a lot easier when you don't have colors. So that's what the yellow and green is representing, the height and the shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and fill it in. So for Ruth, her height was 5, but her shadow was 4. So it's going to be 5 over 4. And the height of the slide, we don't know, so it's x. And the shadow was 4.8, so I create my proportion. It looks like that. Now I can go ahead and cross multiply. So 5 times 4.8 and 4 times x. I write it out with an equal sign in between. I actually multiply, so 4 times x is 4x. 5 times 4.8 is 24. Divide everything by 4. We get 6 feet tall. So the slide is actually 6 feet tall. Okay? You guys are going to try this last one on your own. My hint for you is to draw a picture. Okay? So draw a little picture. It doesn't have to be pretty. Just draw a little picture and you can figure it out that way. And then the last little bit is a challenge question. You don't have to do it. However, it's not a horrible thing to try. Okay, we'll go over the answers to it in class. And if you guys have any questions on it, we can go over that as well. Alright? But that's your notes. 12 minutes. That's it. If you have any questions, we'll answer them next class. Other than that, have a good day.